world still today, and we're being shipped in millions of PCs, servers every single year. So we're out there. You guys will see us. Remote management market leader. So if anybody uses Megarat cards, so that'd be like the Dell iDRAC cards, HP iLO cards, we actually rebrand our products for them. That's one of our OEM products, one of our channel products there. So we designed that G-Series card back in 1997. In 1998, we actually entered an agreement with Dell to sell the DRAC card, and we're still shipping that today. So a lot of servers are out there, you're using one of those technologies more than likely. Snap VDI, this is one of our newest products, and when we start talking about storage with customers, a lot of times VDI is one of the things that comes up. VDI specifically requires a lot of throughput, a lot of performance. So when we start talking to people about flash technology, they say, hey, we're looking at doing some kind of VDI. This is a specific VDI in a box type of platform. The major benefit there is it has a centralized management. It's all supported by one vendor, so you don't have a software vendor, a hardware vendor, a networking vendor. We're handling everything from our side. And the big performance benefits there are the very fast VM provisioning and cloning, instant app and launch access there. The clients boot up in seconds, and a lot of that's built around our Spark technology. So if that is something that you are specifically interested in, we can talk about that offline at another time. So storage, that's what we're here to talk about today. AMI, we've actually been doing storage for a long time. We designed the MegaRAID RAID controller card back in 1994. So if anybody out there has ever used the MegaRAID card, and a lot of you probably still are, that was actually our first product. We were the largest RAID controller shipper in the world from 1996 to 2001. You can see there we're their #1 RAID vendor in Magic Quadrant. We sold that division off to LSI Logic in 2001. Since then, it's been sold to Avago, Broadcom. I believe someone just bought Broadcom as well. So you'll still see them out there, and every now and then we still get a support call into the 800 number looking to get some support on MegaRAID, and that's a testament to how good those cards are and how long they've actually been out in the field. So the storage introduction. So once we sold that division to LSI Logic, we actually stepped out of the storage side for 3 years. After 3 years, the development team, VPs and everything came back, and they decided they wanted to do something a little bit more than just a RAID controller card. So what we developed was an IP span and NAS appliance, and we sold that through the OEM channel initially. That went out to Lenovo. We actually had our largest customer, Walgreens, back then. And as time went on, we added more features. We got into the dual controller chassis. And that's really when we started getting out there and doing things for channel-based sales. So that would be like talking with you guys at this event here. We do local events as well, do shows like BMUG events, data connectors events, that kind of thing. So that's kind of when that really kicked off. It was around 2010, 2011. So the 3400 was our initial entry there. It was a dual controller SAN, all spinning disk stuff. So everything we did there was spinning. We did 15K, 7.2K drives, about a 5,000 max IOPS solution. As things are going on, I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are using either VMware, Hyper-V, whatever the case is, you're trying to get as much compute power onto servers as possible. Same idea with the storage. So we started into the hybrid arrays, and we looked at the market, and we said we saw what was out there, saw what technologies were being presented. A lot of people were doing caching, tiering, whatever the case was. We actually integrated both of those aspects into our hybrid array. And what we came up with was 2 different configurations, really, 4 or 6 SSDs, caching and tiering within those SSDs to get a lot of performance. And the main thing was that sustained performance. Again, we go up to 256 terabytes. 100,000 apps is basically what you would get on a general hybrid array there. And then time goes on some more, and we start seeing that, you know what, the one thing we were missing in the hybrid, we actually didn't have deduplication and compression in there. We found that with the SSDs that kept coming down in price, but if you add dedupe compression into the SSD layer, then we could actually get to the same price point as a hybrid array, but actually provide a full flash array. So the 3610 was that entry there, and at the end of this past year, so the end of 2016, we actually took another iteration, another step, and we've moved down to a 2U 24-bay chassis with our 2610. Again, we have the read and write intensive SSDs up to 256 terabytes, but now we're getting well over 200,000 IOPS out of the system, and that's with a dedupe and compression engine running. So it's a very fast appliance, and we'll talk more about that later. Adding customer verticals. So before the presentation began, we actually had some customer slides up there. We actually fit pretty much anybody that's looking for block-based storage. If you're looking for block-based storage, that's where we kind of fit in. We've got customers in pretty much every vertical there is. Education, finance, healthcare, we pretty much hit on all of these. This is one of the customer example slides we put up there. You can see Walgreens there, a couple of the different universities, UT Dallas, the Utes, University of Maryland. Lots of customers that we have available. If you guys are interested in talking with local customers, we do have customers that we can talk with that provide out information as well. So, you know, ask us. We'll be able to provide that to you. So why are you here? When we start talking about storage with customers, usually the main thing that draws them to Flash is they're seeing either some kind of latency. Their applications are starting to run slow. The users are complaining. They're saying, hey, we're having timeouts here. Something's going on. So enter a Flash discussion. VDI project, as I mentioned, a lot of times we start talking with people about VDI. They say that, you know, we know that this is going to require more performance than we currently have on our storage. You know, what makes sense? What should we look at? Another reason, storage upgrade. So a lot of people also, you know, you've got a system that might be going end of life. It might be just getting older, you're starting to drop drives, that kind of thing. We need to upgrade. So you're looking at doing that. Capacity issues. That's another big point, and we're actually going to cover that with the cloud discussion here too. When you run out of capacity, your options are to either expand if that's something that your current storage platform can do, or invest in that storage, or you just replace it. New build out. A lot of times we talk to customers that either they're opening a new building, they're expanding, they've got something going on, so they're looking at vendors, seeing what's out there, comparing it to what they've currently got. Learning and planning. A lot of times people just want to say, hey, I've heard about this technology, I don't know much about it, I just want to hear, you know, what you guys have to say. Finally there we got looking into the cloud. Cloud is a big buzzword. It's everywhere. It's the future. It's what everybody's talking about. And finally, we got, you know, just went free pizza today. So some of you guys, I'm sure, are enjoying some pizza. But the landscape, so the cloud. Let's talk about the cloud here. You know, where is everything going? It's you know, everybody's talking about moving their data to the cloud, moving apps to the cloud. There's a couple of different pieces that we're going to touch on here. So cloud for storage. We could talk about backup storage, possibly moving older data to free up that capacity. If you're moving out to the cloud, you're saying, hey, I'm running out of capacity on my storage appliance or my local storage. If I just move this workload out, I'll have, you know, the space I need for the next year or whatever your growth pattern is. Cloud for apps. So another thing, and we're going to focus here on email actually for moving that out. You know, I'm going to move out a high capacity application out to the cloud, free up some capacity. Or you can move an I/O application. That could be a SQL, Oracle database, you know, whatever the case is. I'm going to move that out, free up that I/O on my disk or on your servers. It'll just give me, you know, that added oomph I need to get to where I need to go. Well, the cloud, everybody always talks about how it's, you know, all great and everything. We have a little animation there of the guy actually having some rain. But let's talk about backup storage in the cloud. So we send backups to cloud repositories, and there's tons out there. Amazon has Glacier. Barracuda has their own, which is integrated into their appliance. Carbonite, you can do that for, you know, desktop users, servers, you know, wherever the case is. iCloud. If anybody out there has an iPhone and you've got that, you know, that's 35 gigs of iCloud, you know, set it up for your contacts, your just stuff that's, you know, if anything happens to this phone. My father-in-law actually dropped his phone into a pool last year and lost everything off of his phone. It wouldn't come back. We tried the rice bag treatment, tried all that stuff. And what ended up happening was when we got him a new one, he actually had iCloud on, and he didn't really take a lot of pictures or anything, but he had everything turned on. So when he came back, he actually got his phone back to like it was brand new. So that was a great integration, great piece of what that whole, you know, feature is for. Dropbox, you know, a lot of people use that more for like file sharing, that kind of thing, but the list goes on. And there's lots of different applications, lots of different uses for cloud there. And again, moving data to free up capacity. Sometimes we'll say, hey, if you move this old project, you know, this hasn't been touched in a year or two, let's just get it off the stand, free up that capacity, or even the specific workload. Like I said, we're going to talk about email here. So if you're going to move your email off, that's a kind of an old thing. Maybe you have a new application coming in and you guys want to integrate either a new, you know, SAP type of database, some kind of CRM or something. Be like, hey, let's just have that hosted in the cloud. Let's not add that I/O. Let's not add that capacity to what we currently have. Let's have it hosted. Let's have it just, run out there. Those are kind of a couple options that are around. So storage in the cloud. We're going to talk about, basically, it's perceived as being inexpensive. This right here, this is specifically from Amazon Glacier. And I have a link here at the bottom. If you guys want to, you can probably just Google it, actually. It's submedium.com, little blog post. But basically what happened was this guy got a new laptop in 2012 or 13 or so. And what he wanted to do was move all of his CDs off of his laptop. He had new SSD drive, capacity was very expensive. He was like, hey, I can move this off. It's going to cost me 50 cents a month. Whenever he decided that, he didn't like seeing that bill on his credit card every month, he was like, oh, I'll just pull it back off, no big deal. Well, this is where the problems start coming in. And the cost, he was seeing 50 cents a month. It was, less than the cost of buying a USB hard drive or something. So when he pulled it off, he actually incurred a lot of costs because it was, pulling back, retrieval pricing, that kind of thing. He later talks on about, hey, if this was 3 terabytes, this is what it would cost. He's talking about $6,000. As a company, if you've got, to get that back and that's the cost, that's fine. Sometimes that's the way it is. You got to understand that's what's happening. But just make sure you understand that that's the cost of getting the data back. The biggest thing, which he actually didn't address, was his recovery time was about 12 hours for that 60 gig. If you were to extrapolate that out and get out to 3 terabytes, that recovery time would be 25 days. And I don't know any company that could live with 25 days of downtime before they could be back up or have that recovery done. So we always talk about recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives. That recovery time objective there is just astronomical. But Tyler, I think you've got a poll question for us.
We do, and this is just something, just kind of want to see what people are working with today in terms of, are they already looking at the cloud for their primary storage, or are they still using most of their storage on site? So we're just opening up a quick poll question. It'll be open for a minute, but yeah, if you just want to take a quick response, it's just an A or B answer. The question is, how is your primary data currently stored today? So we're just kind of wondering, like, for your primary data, is anybody out there already moved to the cloud for their primary stuff? Or are they still using pretty much all on-site stuff, so using your on-site servers, or your on-site SAN, or whatever the case may be, and then we'll reveal those, those answers after the minute's up, and we might even, we've only got like 35 seconds remaining, so we might even cut it short, as it looks like just about everybody has, I'm sorry, that's a no answer. So we'll let kind of the rest of the questions come in, and we'll have a few more poll questions throughout the presentation. Really appreciate people, just kind of participating. Kind of helps things go along and helps us kind of tailor our presentation to what you guys are looking to, what you guys are doing today. Kind of helps us tailor our presentation a little bit. So, yeah, it looks like we only got a few seconds left, so we'll go ahead and close out that poll. And so it looks like, Ben, from the results, looks like everybody who answered, out of 45 who answered, 44 of those are still using their on-site stuff, so servers or SAN, and then only one of our current 82 registrants is in the cloud or with an MSP for their primary stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Let's see if I move that out of the way. Okay, so let's talk about storage in cloud as being available, because that's the next big thing, is your availability. I think that's what a lot of people care about. If you don't have that data available, don't have your apps available, whatever the case is, it does you no good. So recently, Amazon S3, so they're a big thing. They're used by 148,000 websites. I mean, Netflix, Spotify, you can see the list there. Lots and lots of companies use this, and it's generally very well up. Whenever it's down, though, it creates a news story, actually. So this is something that, you see tickers go by. There's actually Michigan State Twitter. They put up a little thing there because whenever it went down, it affected so many different applications that it was, very easy to see what happens when a large-scale MSP or whatever goes down. Of course, the picture. I mean, that's kind of where you're at. What can you do at that point? There's nothing to do. You shake your fist in the air. That's about it. But one of the things that you should pay attention to if you're looking at moving anything to the cloud is that uptime. So Amazon guarantees 99.9% uptime, and that, that sounds great. What that comes out to is about 8.5 hours of downtime per year. That outage in February, that lasted about 4.5 hours, and that affected a ton of customers. Basically what happened with that, they're actually updating their billing servers, and what ended up happening was it did something and rebooted their indexing, their servers that do all the indexing for all the different object-based storage that they have. The indexing servers went down and they had to be rebooted to come back up, and when that happened, everything basically needed to be rebooted. So by the time they figured out what was happening, they had a very big downtime, a very big massive outage, and like I said, it garnered a lot of media attention. So we got a couple links there for basically with Amazon, the way they actually they put out their posts and their messages. They have a whole message board of, hey, this happened, this is what's going on. That's their explanation of everything. And I also have a USA Today article because we pulled some of that information about the websites that they use there. But the big thing here is that you're at the mercy of the cloud. Whether you're using a small MSP, a large scale, cloud provider like S3, you're outsourcing the storage. You're under their umbrella of, hey, this is our storage. They're managing it. If something does go down or something happens, they're obviously trying to fix it, but it's out of your control at that point. So just make sure that whatever you're using, that you've got an SLA in place that you can live with and that you like. So here we go with apps in the cloud. So one of the easier things to kind of look at is Exchange. A lot of our customers, we talk with them and they say, hey, we're talking about moving a specific workload out to the cloud. We want to get it off of our storage, get it off of our servers, free up capacity, free up whatever. And Exchange is a very easy one to look at. These are just, Exchange pricing that's from, Office.com. This is, the price that everybody pays. It's per user per month. They basically give you an annual commitment. I'm not sure if you can do a monthly on top of that, but with the annual, that's what the price comes out to. Again, Microsoft provides that 99.9% uptime, so that means, you have about 8.5 hours that you can expect that at some point there's something that's going to happen. The different plans, the major differences in them are just usability. So the first one is strictly like a web-based portal. They don't let you do like Exchange, Outlook. You don't have the iPhone apps. You don't have all that kind of stuff. The second plan adds a few things, and by the end of it there in the business stream, that's basically like having real Exchange on-premise, but basically having it just hosted out there. I have a customer that actually, they were running low on capacity on their StorTrends plans, and they were debating on to move to Office 360 and just get everything out there. What ended up happening, and this is what I have down here at the cost, they have about 800 mailboxes that they currently serve. And when they looked at all the different options, they decided they wanted that $12.50 per month mailbox. And that comes out to about $120,000 a year. So the 3-year life cycle on that was about $360,000. Our expansion chassis was nowhere near that cost, or more like a tenth of that cost for what the expansion chassis was they wanted. So it made it a no-brainer at that point. But depending on the size of your corporation, what you guys are trying to do, it might make sense for you. But make sure you understand what features you're getting, the SLA is in place, make sure everything's fitting the way you want it. The other thing I have in there for under usability, adding a new user or a new employee or whatever and removing. So this is another thing that another one of my customers actually ran into. The way that they had their apps in the cloud set up, the way they had their email set up was if they removed an employee, then that mailbox was totally gone. Well, what happened was they had someone that left for maybe 6 months and they removed the mailbox. They didn't want to pay that fee. So once they removed the mailbox, the employee came back after 6 months and they wanted, hey, bring back my email. And they couldn't bring it back. It was totally deleted, totally gone. It wasn't saved anywhere. So they were, had to start all over fresh. So any emails that they had were totally gone. Under a, standard Exchange platform, you can just disable the mailbox, and then when you re-enable it, you've got all that data still sitting there. So just something to make sure, like I said, the SLA is in place, make sure you understand how it actually will work on those day-to-day factors and everything. So security, this is one of the big ones, and this probably could be its own webinar. You can focus in on cloud security for a lot of different things there. And I think Tyler's ready for another poll question, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, Ben, we just kind of wanted to talk about something that you were mentioning a little bit earlier in the presentation about offloading specific workloads to the cloud as opposed to, kind of migrating everything off there. So we'll just open up this poll question again. It's just, basically, would you consider offloading a specific workload to the cloud? And it's just a yes/no question. We're only going to do 30 seconds on this one since it's not a very complicated question. It's just, would you consider offloading something like just your SQL or just your Exchange or, whatever the case may be to a cloud? So not necessarily just your primary storage, but just a particular workload to kind of help, balance out what you guys have going on in your environment. So it just kind of looks like with the results coming in now, looks like we've got about 23 yeses and 15 nos. I'm sorry, making that 24 yeses, 15 nos. So looks like folks out there are willing to kind of, offload a particular application to the cloud. So I think that's a good result.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, so let's jump into security again here. So the cloud security, the main thing here is, how secure is it? We actually had some preliminary questions come in. People were asking, what's the security of the cloud? Well, it all depends, first off, on what level of security you're looking for and which cloud or MSP you're planning on putting in. Some MSPs, they allow you to choose the data centers that you're going to be in. Obviously, the pricing varies. If you're going to be, out the boonies, it's a lot less. If you're going to be close to a city, it's a little more. Also, the back end for the networking depends on where that location is and your latencies that you're going to get out of there. Also, certain locations, they have different security levels. They have higher security areas. So if you want to have a caged rack that's all locked off from everything else, of course you can get that. Some places just have basically racks that are not really shared, but they technically are shared because it's in the same space. So just make sure you understand what kind of security level you're looking for, what I guess you need there, and make sure that the facility that you're looking at provides that to you. A lot of these places will let you go out there, tour the facilities, talk with customers, get kind of an idea of what's going on. We also had some specific questions on HIPAA. Well, MSPs obviously can provide those security levels. You just have to make sure that this fits and has those right guidelines. I know specifically for some of my customers I have up in Canada, the Canadian version of that is FIPA, I believe. I'm not sure if it's PHIPA, but FIPA. And one of their big things is the data can't leave a province. So for hospital data, it can't leave a province. So they can't do cloud and send it over here to America or even send it over to another province within Canada. So just make sure you understand what you're trying to do there from a security standpoint, and make sure that MSP can provide that. Vulnerabilities. So another question that came in was, are there any vulnerabilities to having your data out in the cloud? Of course there is. It doesn't matter if your data is in the cloud. It doesn't matter if your data is local on site. Everyone's susceptible to some type of data breach. And that could be someone, trying to get in from outside. It could be someone within the organization. I mean, everyone's susceptible. And of course, we've got a guy here, because everyone knows that the man in the hoodie at the local coffee shop, that's what he's doing. He's, trying to break into everybody's computers. But discuss with the provider. Make sure the SLAs that are in place cover everything that you want. Understand the level of security that you're getting, what you're needing, what's provided. You just need to see what's available, what's out there, and make sure that they're hitting the points that you want. Like I said, we could go on forever about cloud security. That's definitely a big one. So let's jump into some StorTrends SAN technology now. I mentioned at the beginning, we have our 3400, which is spinning SAN, 3500, which is hybrid SAN, and 2600, which is our all-flash SAN. The architecture here, we'll start with the spinning disk SAN. Basically what we do, we have, it's an on-premise SAN, obviously. What we do is we do a mixture of spinning disks. You can have 15K SAS drives for that high spinning disk tier. What we're trying to do there is hold all the hot data in those spinning disks. We have an automatic promotion and demotion of the data that we can write the data down to the cold tier. So data that's older or things that are sequential in nature, like backup data, video, you can have that specifically go down to the 7.2Ks. Those are a lot less expensive. They work great, but they're just not as fast as a 15K. So one of the questions that came in actually was, hey, our 15K, what's the difference between 15K SAS and solid state? Well, in this image here, you can actually see from the caching and SSDs in this 3500, we replaced all of those spinning disks with just 4 SSDs. So our 3500, we do their 4, 6 SSDs, and then we have spinning disks behind it. That little bit of SSDs can actually provide about 100,000 IOPS. You can see this previous 3400, that maxes out around 5,000. So you can get a lot more performance out of the solid states. You don't need as many of them. You just need to make sure that you have enough capacity in there to cover that hot data. And that's something we'll touch on too in a minute about our iData. So one of the things about hybrids is if you've got that SSD cache, SSD tier, you want to make sure you have all of your hot data in that little section there. If you overrun that cache, if you have more hot data than what you have available in SSDs, you're going to start hitting those spinning disks, and your applications will start getting spinning to speed. So that's something that you need to make sure you understand where your data is, how much of it's hot, how much of it's cold, how much new data you have coming in to make sure that the hybrid is set properly. As we moved on, we talked about, we made that 3610. Everything was flash. So you're getting flash performance from the hot and the cold tier. Over time, we made this 2U platform that's a 24 bay. It's all SSDs. We also have that for both cache and tier space. And SSDs host both the hot and cold data. So even if you've got data that's in the cold tier that you're accessing, you're still going to get SSD speed. And that's something that's very important to some organizations. So let's talk a little about specifically what the pricing is, because we did talk a little about cloud pricing. We used to show up here some of our competitors and that kind of thing. It makes more sense, though, actually, to show these are our products, our product line, where our pricing comes in, what you can expect to pay. I built out a couple of systems for us, so 3400. I was trying to hit about 60 terabytes. That was the idea here. And if you're hitting about 60 terabytes with the 3400, I put everything in the RAID 10, so I'm going to be upfront about that so I can see that raw capacity down to usable. Everything's in the RAID 10. We're getting as much performance out of this as possible. The problem with this setup is you're using up 5 chassis. So you got 15U worth of rack space you're using. You're right at that 60 terabyte capacity, but we're about 5,000 IOPS, and you can see the cost there associated to all of that. That's just what spinning disk costs. 15K disks, that's, most of it's all 15K, so that's kind of what happens there. With a 3500, we start getting into the hybrid, so we can actually replace that 15K with the SSDs. And for this system, typically you might hear if you're out there looking at different hybrid vendors, they'll tell you they need about 10% of their data in SSD. That's pretty much where we see the market as well, but we have that tool, as I mentioned, that data tool to let you really dig in to see where that hot data is and how much capacity you need. So with this one, you can see I've got 6.4 terabytes of hot data capacity for SSD. We're over 10%. We're actually, I think we're around 15% on this system. So we're providing you plenty. I'm not giving you the lowest config here to try to say, oh, look how great our pricing is. This is a real user configuration. Estimated price, for instance, right around 50 grand. So let's talk about the 2610. That's an all-flash array. The one thing that's big on this one is that deduplication and compression ratio. So we've got a 3-to-1 on this system. What this comes out to is about 80 terabytes, actually, of usable capacity. And again, 11.5 terabytes of hot data, 70 terabytes of cold data. I'm giving that 15%. Again, we're well above a 10% minimum. This is what customers, this is what they actually buy. So again, the pricing, we're actually right above where the hybrid is, but that's at a 3-to-1. Our typical customers actually see a 4-to-1 ratio, and the higher that ratio goes, obviously the price per gig goes down. So at a 3-to-1, we're basically right at the same price as the hybrid. If you guys are interested, we do have a price quote generator. We can create anything within this. You can see the link there, stortrends.com/quote. What we basically put in is just some basic information. How many terabytes do you want? What's your max I/O? Interface, support level, and they'll go ahead and create a quote for you. It's a simple. We'll get it out to you probably today, actually. So let's talk about our technology. The 2610, this is our newest chassis, so we'll talk about the major features there. Deduplication and compression is definitely the biggest thing. We have the optimized tier to actually give us more performance. The endless cache, so one of the big things is that SSD endurance. That's one of the big things that people are questioning when they actually start talking about SSD systems, and we'll talk about that in a second here too. We have plenty of configurations, so even if you have no hot data, but you want all flash, we have a capacity that'll fit you, or maybe you have 50% hot data, we have a configuration that'll fit you as well. One of the big things, and I should have mentioned this earlier, everything's all-inclusive. We do not do any kind of licensing or anything. We're not going to come back at you later and say, hey, if you want this feature, you need this specific license. Big point too, VMware integration, we have all the VAI primitives. We are Microsoft Gold certified. We're on Citrix HCL, so we're completely out there with everybody. Latency reduction, obviously the all-flash array is great. We have configurations that are around 50 cents a gig. Basically, if you're looking for a high-performance database, mixed workload, VDI, that kind of thing, that's where 2610 will fit in. Talking quickly about deduping compression here, typical customers have around a 4-to-1 compaction ratio. I've got customers that are in that 2 to 3 range. I've also got customers that are up in the teens. So depending on the data type, we usually see around that 4-to-1 ratio. Basically what this means is if you need 40 terabytes, the physical capacity within the system, you only need to buy about 10 terabytes of actual capacity. The compression ratio and the deduplication, what that ends up providing is more capacity within that disk space. And 120,000 apps, that's at a 70-30 split. That's sustained performance. George in a minute here will actually be pulling up one of our demos, and he can show you what kind of performance he's getting on one of the lab boxes. The right tier, or the hot tier and the cold tier, the big thing here is the hot tier handles all those incoming writes, the rewrites, the hot reads. There's no deduplication going on there. Any company that you talk with, that they say, hey, we're running inline deduplication and compression, there's no performance overhead, you know, this thing is great. Dig into it a little bit. Find out exactly what they're saying, because there is overhead. There's operations that are going on within that data structure set, and you're going to have overhead. There's guys out there that'll turn off their deduplication and compression when they're running, and there's a reason why they're doing that. The cold tier, so this handles all the cold reads. That's where we're doing all of our deduplication compression. Basically, we're handling it all on the back end, getting you that ratio to hopefully bring down the cost on the system. And here's a couple of things there for light reading for you guys for tonight and on the weekend. You know, we have patents specifically on deduplication and compression, and we got them listed out there. But the endless cache, so as I mentioned, everybody's worried. We should be worried about the endurance of the SSDs. That's really where this endless cache comes in. What we do here, we're putting a buffer in from that read tier. So in front of that deduplication and compression engine, we're going to go ahead and put data into the cache. So if you've got data that's being read, it's compressed and deduped. The dedupe isn't as big of a deal because that's being held within memory. It's being held within that hash table. But the compression, so you're going to have that data get uncompressed every time it's being read out of that read tier. By putting it into the caching layer, we're having it already inflated, already sitting there ready. If you have another read come in, it's ready to go. You're getting complete SSD speed out of there. There's no performance hit there at all whenever that comes in. So that's where we're saying that endless cache is that performance buffer. Protecting the endurance. First off, we guarantee all of our SSDs for 5 years. If you can burn them up within 5 years, we'll replace them. The endless cache, what that's doing is collecting all those writes and rewrites that are going down to that read tier, so it helps protect those read tier drives. And those endless cache drives, those are 10 drive write per day disks. And if you multiply all that data out, all that information out, it comes out to about 72 petabytes per drive. So that's a lot of data being written down into those drives. So the question always comes up, well, hey, you've got these options. Do I need an all-flash array? Do I need a hybrid array? Do I need a spinning disk array? Well, it depends on what you're doing. It depends on what kind of data type you have. That's kind of where we'll get into a discussion about what's happening with your data, what you're doing. But if you're looking for high performance, if you can get a 3-to-1 or higher deduplication ratio, the all-flash arrays from our side are about priced equivalent to the hybrid arrays. So I would push you towards an all-flash if you've got 3-to-1 or higher. For a backup job, for video, that's kind of something that would fit into the spinning disk realm, but it might fit into the hybrid realm where you can put a little bit of cache in front of some applications, have that backup, have that video, have that directly go down to the spinning disks and not even touch the SSDs. So we have that option available. We have the features available within our systems to help supply that. So I mentioned about how much hot data you have out there. One of the big things that we actually found when we started talking with customers, when we got into the hybrids, we would ask them, what's your capacity? They would know that, what do you have going on? They would kind of know what your growth rate is. They would have an idea. But when we got into IOPS and throughput and that kind of thing, a lot of our customers just didn't know where they stood. And from a hybrid perspective, it matters because we need to know how many SSDs to put in. Did you need 4? Did you need 6? Do we need to put that in a RAID 10 or RAID 5? Like what do we need to do here? So that data tool, what we actually started doing was we would get some Dell DPACs, and those gave some information, but it didn't give us hot data. The biggest thing is hot data if you're looking at a hybrid or even an all-flash SAN. So what we did was developed our own tool. It gets set up in minutes. It's free download on our website. Typically what we have our customers do is run it for 7 days. It gives us an understanding of a work week as well as a weekend, because a lot of times people do their backups on the weekends. But it lets us see, what's going on within the servers, what's going on, from the storage array, where are we seeing latency spikes. We can see what's happening currently, but then also we see the number of writes per day, rewrites per day, and basically get that understanding of how much hot data there is. So based on the hot data, we can create a hybrid array. We can put the correct amount of SSDs, correct number of SSDs, the right size. So we won't sell you too many SSDs or too much capacity. We won't undersell you on SSDs so that you have future performance problems. But you can see kind of the information that we pull there and what we can analyze. And we'll run through this with one of our solutions engineers after that week run, give you an idea of what's going on within your environment, and then we can also provide you that appropriate price quote. Finally, one of the last things here is the support, the storage support that's in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where we're headquartered. That's where everybody sits. So we've got our storage guys down there. We've got the development team down there, QA's down there. If they need any help with anything, they can grab a development engineer and say, hey, let's dig into this a little bit further. It's great to have that available. Our customers, that's one of the first things they say if you talk to any of our customers is the support is outstanding. Everything we do is 24/7 phone support. We do have 4-hour on-site available. There's no downtime maintenance. We will schedule an upgrade assistance with you, so if you need to do some kind of software update or something or networking update, we'll schedule it with you at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. They don't care. They're there anyway, so they're like, hey, we're here. Just let us know what you're doing. Another thing is the email alerts. So we do some proactive health monitoring. We're watching what's going on. We get all the critical alerts that come in. I've had customers that have accidentally pulled power supplies out, or actually the cables. We get the email alert. They call it, say, hey, what's going on? We kind of stop them from doing something, hopefully not too bad to their system. Same thing with the networking. If a NIC goes down, we'll call them and say, hey, something's going on. Oh, yeah, we're switching out a switch. We're just moving some things around. Okay, but we're there. We're watching. We're making sure we're there in real time to actually see what's happening. Again, the SSD endurance guarantee. We're gonna replace those SSDs if you get 20% less on your endurance within that 5 years. I mean, it's no question. It's there's people out there saying flash for life, all this and that. We're guaranteeing them. I think everybody is pretty much at this point. And finally, support terms from 1 to 5 years. We do our support terms. Typical customers we have somewhere in that 3 range is usually what people ask for. But we've got people that want 1 year, and every year we just rebill them. And we've got guys that say that, hey, we want 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So just let us know if you have a support term that you're looking for and what you want there. But that kind of takes care of the presentation portion here. I'm going to pass it over to George in a minute and let him jump in. I'm doing a live demo. And Tyler, do you have any more polls or any questions or anything you want to jump in on?
Yeah, we'll do one last poll just before we get started with the demo, just to, I guess, kind of give us a good lead-in for it. But like I said, this will be the last one for the day. It'll be another 30-second person. But it's, what's your biggest apprehension with moving to the cloud? So, with storage and with the cloud, we just kind of want to know what people are afraid of, if anything. And you can answer multiple answers on this. But we've got price, security, performance, availability, data corruption, or others. So just want to know if you do have apprehensions, just kind of what those are and, what you're worried about with the cloud. Always good information to know. And like I said, we're just doing a 30-second one, so we've just got about 10 seconds here. And then we'll publish those results, and George can get started with his demo. But just 2 more seconds, 1 second. and looks like a little bit of everything. You know, price was a big one, security was a big one that people were worried about, availability, to a lesser extent, performance, data corruption, but looks like price and security were the things that were the most worrisome, I guess, to people looking into doing the cloud. But I'll go ahead and publish those poll results, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to George for the remaining demo portion of the presentation.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Tyler. So hey guys, I hope you've enjoyed the presentation so far. I'm going to walk you here through a quick little demo of our UI, kind of show you what the management looks like, and all the different things that you can do, and how easy it is to do them. And so let's go ahead and jump right in. And so you can see here, I have my screen currently full screen. I'm using Chrome. You can use whatever web browser you want. Any of the IPs that are configured on the system, simply put it into the URL bar, hit go, and we're off and running. So you can see here, this is the first page that comes up anytime you log into your unit. So immediately what we're trying to show you here is how well is the dedupe working within your system. So you can see here to the top right, I currently have a dedupe rate of 4.3, so right around average of what we typically see. And so down here right below it, you'll see two sections, the bottom section and the top section. In the top, this is the space that your servers are using. This is also the space that you would actually need if you didn't have dedupe compression. So you can see here, I'm using almost about 2 terabytes of space. And then if we actually follow this the shade down to the blue here, down on the disks themselves, I've only had to write down about 450 or so gigs. And so that kind of gives you an idea of how the space savings really works within the system. And it gives you a good visual representation of that, so you can easily see it as soon as you log in. To the right of that, to the left of that, you can see physically this unit that I have has about 3 terabytes of usable physical capacity. Given my current dedupe rate, I should actually be able to realize about 13 terabytes of used capacity once all is said and done. To the right of it, very simply, here's how much free I have physically as well as virtually. So the next section here, we have events and we have smart information. I have just a couple dummy events here just to kind of show you what kind of things we're looking for when we're looking at the event section. And basically anything warning or fatal that's going on in the system, that'll obviously pop up here, so you can immediately see it as soon as you log in. You don't have to go digging through the event log or anything like that, and you're immediately aware of any actionable items, something that might be going wrong. It could be some sort of performance event. It could be some sort of, a disk failing, a power supply failing. The example that Ben has mentioned earlier about NICs failing and power supplies and all of that. That would all pop up here immediately, and obviously we would be a recipient to all of that as well, so we could get on it as quick as possible. To the right of that, we have our smart information, and so what we're looking for here is the smart status and the temperature status of the drives in the system overall. And so Ben touched on it briefly, but if any one of our SSDs falls below 20% of its endurance remaining, we'll go ahead and we'll swap that out preemptively. Here in the internal testing, we've noticed once it does reach that 20% threshold, it kind of goes down exponentially from there. And so we obviously want to catch it before it becomes an issue. And as far as endurance goes with SSDs, it basically means, hey, can I write to the drive or not? Theoretically, you give it power. You can read whatever's currently on those cells forever, but there's only a limited amount of times that you can write to those cells, so that's where the endurance kind of comes into play there. And so if we go down in this section, the next section here is the performance section. And so what we're showing you here is the latency, the IOPS, and the throughput of the system overall. You can see here we have a chart to the left that kind of shows you the last 2 hours worth of information. You can hover over any one of these and see what the value was for a particular thing at that particular point in time. To the right of that, we show you an instantaneous value as well as the last hour's average. So the instantaneous value will update every 10 or 15 seconds, and you can see it's just randomly updating here. And it gives you an idea of, hey, how well have I been running for the last hour, and how well am I doing now? And you can see we're also breaking that down between reads and writes. So just as an example here, you can see I'm pushing a gigabyte per second. Actually, a little bit more than that here currently. I have about 37,000 IOPS. This is currently a full read test that I'm running here. You can see I've had some writes gone on in the past, but you can see with all of that, I'm right around that 1 millisecond worth of latency. You can see what my average is given all of that. So I'm being able, on average, to push a pretty decent workload and keeping my latency down at the same time. So that's the biggest thing that we're trying to do with the all-flash array. An SSD, everybody has them. SSDs can give you the performance, but if you can't tune your SSDs correctly and you don't have that the low latency, then it doesn't really matter. So we are really focused on keeping that latency down as much as possible while giving you that performance. So, and then the last section in here is I/O size distribution and read-write ratio. Read-write ratio pretty straightforward. Are you heavy in the reads, heavy on the writes? Just kind of informational there. With the I/O size distribution, what we're looking for there is the smaller the block size. Generally, it's going to be more random in nature, and so by that I mean we want to make sure that the drives themselves are adequately giving you the IOPS required for those workloads, whereas the bigger block sizes are going to be more sequential in nature. And so in that case, we actually want to make sure that the network, the throughput, the bandwidth is actually sufficient and being properly utilized as well. So that kind of gives them an idea of, overall how the system is running and whatnot. So actually, if I scroll back up to the top, you'll see I have another tab. And in this tab, it's basically going to be similar information to what we just saw, except this is going to be on a per volume basis. So you can see here I have this table, gives you information on the space and the different performance metrics and stuff. But if we click around, these charts here at the bottom, they'll actually reload for that particular volume. So, you can see not only on a system-wide level, but we can see it at a volume level as well. So each one of your volumes, if you have a SQL volume, you have an Exchange volume, what have you. You can see how each one of those is individually performing to make sure that everybody is running as expected as well. So, but aside from that, it's basically the same information, so I won't dwell on that too much. Here, the hardware health is the next section that I typically like to show you. And in this section, when it comes up, it'll be a physical representation of the unit. And in this section, basically, we can figure out anything hardware-related about the unit and, any particular issues or anything like that might be going on. So you can see here we have attributes for the left and for the right controller individually, such as CPU and memory utilization, the network utilization, things like that. In the middle, like I said, we have that physical representation of the actual chassis. We can see information about the motherboard, the fans, the CPUs, basically anything on the motherboard itself. But then on the drives themselves as well, you can see here we have these drives. So, for example, if we hover over one of these, we'll hover over this one, you can see we have, hey, here's the status of this particular drive. This one's actually a spare. Here's the capacity, things like that. The stars represent whether they're, what kind of SSDs they are, and then the tags basically mean, hey, the purple one there means those two in the middle are part of the cache, whereas the blue ones just mean they're part of what we call the storage pool, which is basically just our different RAID arrays coming together for you to be able to partition it back out into volumes. So, but if we actually turn this guy around, we can also see on the back, making sure the power supplies are good, the fans are good. Looking into the interfaces themselves, you can see some quick information, the IP, the speed, the status, things like that. And so, but really anything hardware related that you might want to know about or might maybe have a question about, you can come in here real quick and take a quick peek. So, and so the two things that I've shown you so far are mainly just, checking up on the unit, making sure everything's okay, how everything's running. One of the other big things that you'll probably do within the UI, at least in the beginning, is obviously set up the SAN itself, set up all your volumes and all of that. And so we have, for setting things up, we try to make wizards for everything, and we try to make it as simple as possible. And you'll notice a recurring theme. We try to make everything simple. We try to give you as much information in as clean a manner as possible, and easily to understand and things like that. So I'll just go ahead and do, I make a lot of tests here apparently. I'll do test for 87. And then, so all you gotta do is give it a name, give it a size. I'll do 4 terabytes in this case, maybe. Excuse me. And then, it's a SAN, it's thin provision. We only do thin provisioning here just because of the dedupe. We could write down 10, but if we try to do thicker exact provisioning, everything else would be deduped, so it wouldn't actually be provisioned, so we just do thin. And then the tier residency profile here, we have a high and a low, basically between the hot tier and the cold tier, dedupe or no dedupe. And so you can choose, between the two. As a quick suggestion there, when you're first setting up, if you're going to do a migration, we actually recommend going to low, because it will be throughput intensive, so we won't have to worry so much about the IOPS requirements of the migration. And also what that will do is it'll allow us to, once the migration is done, to quickly migrate the data that's actually being accessed back up into the hot tier. Whereas if we tried to demote it going the other way, it would take a lot longer, and your system would potentially be unbalanced for a longer period of time, and so we're trying to avoid that. But anyways, you simply hit add to list. You can go through the exercise as many times for as many volumes as you need at any given point. But once you are done, you simply hit finish, and it'll start doing everything in the background for you. And a quick little window will pop up here. There we go. That basically talks about the high and the low profiles like I just did, but the rest of this actually is our recommendations for proper iSCSI timeout settings on the servers themselves, whether it's a hypervisor, whether it's a VM or a physical server, whether it's Windows, Linux, what have you. We have the recommendations, we have where to set them, how to set them, to make sure that, your connections are safe and they're proper. If for whatever reason there's a hiccup in something, you're not going to have a disconnect, you're not going to have potential data corruption, anything like that. So this one's pretty crucial, and we populate it every time that you create a new volume. Obviously, you would get a physical copy of this as well, but it's pretty important, so we show it every time you create a new volume there. I do want to get to a couple questions. So that's, it's a very quick overview of the UI. Hopefully it kind of highlights some of the bigger points there. Obviously, if you want to go and dig deeper into this, we can set up a call. Me or one of the other engineers here can go as deep as you want. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, George. Like you said, we've only got about 4 minutes here left, and we're going to try to even get you guys out a little bit earlier than that. So I think we're just going to run through 3 quick questions that came in across the communicator. Real quick, I want to thank everybody for participation. It's been an absolute pleasure presenting to you as always. And so we'll just knock these out very quickly. So first one for Ben. This one's fairly easy, came across, is how easy is it to expand your platform?
Sure. So expansion, that's something we probably should have talked about there. George can actually flip around and go back to the help screen. You can show you the back of the unit there. So what we do with our expansion chassis is we have a dual path SAS expansion. So what we have is each controller has its own SAS cable. We expand out to the expansion chassis. And when we shift the unit out, it actually already has the RAID set up. So all you have to do is plug it in, power it on. The unit will see that, hey, there's some new drives here, and you add them to your current storage pool. At that point, then the system will be able to restripe its RAID and everything, and you'll be on your way. So it's very quick and very easy.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Ben. We just have 2 more quick ones, and then we'll let everyone go. So next one is, what kind of performance can I expect from the cloud versus a SAN device?
Well, that was a very that's a weighted question for sure. Depends on what you're trying to do. out in the cloud, you can get servers, you can set up your own stuff, or you could rent servers. So you can do a hosted type of environment. You can select how many CPUs you want, how much memory you want. You can actually, some of them let you even say like, hey, I want to have 5,000 IOPS for this specific workload. They'll limit you to whatever your IOPS number is. That's actually one of the companies that are out there. It's SolidFire. That's how they actually got going, was they sold their appliances to MSPs, and then they could do a volume-based number of however many IOPS they wanted on there. So depends on what performance you want. It also depends on what you're willing to pay out in the cloud. For on-premise, we're extremely low latency, as you can see, high I/O. So it depends. You'd be paying probably through the nose if you wanted to get the performance that we can provide with an on-premise stand from a cloud provider.
Awesome. And last quick question before we let everyone go. And this is speaking of weighted questions, when does it make sense to use cloud versus all-flash storage?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on what you're looking to do. It depends very much on what your recovery point objective is. Depends on what kind of speed you're looking to get. Depends on the price you're looking to pay. If you're looking to specifically do backup and you don't ever plan on getting the data back again, look into something like Glacier. I mean, we did the slide on it. The guy was paying 50 cents a month for 60 gigs. The problem was when it comes back, how much is it going to cost to get back, and how long is it going to take you to get it back? It depends on what you're looking for having the data out there, when you're looking to get it back, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, that is the top of the hour, so we came out there perfectly. Want to thank everyone again for your participation in the event today. Once you close out of WebEx, you'll actually be redirected to our website, so feel free to poke around there for additional information that you may have missed during the presentation, or just if you want to expand upon anything. There's also contact us information in there, so if you ever want to reach out and have any questions that you'd like to address more on a personal one-to-one level, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We'd be happy to set that up. But for myself, Ben, and George, we want to thank you all so much again, and we look forward to presenting to everyone again in the future.